Hello there and welcome back to Wörth. Today I want to present you the BF109Z. This is more of a first impressions and again not a review, although I will go over some statistics and just want to show you what I think about the plane. And I have an ace gameplay for you on Norway and I will show it to you later. But first give me a few minutes to talk about the plane. Now, I think the first question that pops up, is the plane worth it? The simple answer is not in my books. Of course, opinions might vary, and if you want to see the plane as a grinding tool, like, which is the actual buying purpose, no, it's not that versatile, it's not that good, and it's just okay in the current patch. All things will make sense. Give me time to explain, to go through the arguments, and then, get your own verdict for yourself. Because I think the best thing that I can do is to prevent you, from any opinion, and give you the arguments to make your own opinion, to think for yourself. Results can be deceiving, stats can be deceiving. But the very biggest question that I have for you is, why would you buy this thing? Honestly, there is no selling point for it other than it being unique and maybe beautiful, and you might just want to be a collector that just wants to have it. Maybe you think that the bundle price is okayish for a tier 4 premium, $30, and I think premium time and Golden Eagles. I'm not quite sure. I got this plane from Gaijin, so thank you, Gaijin, again for giving me this plane to, show it. I think it has style. It is the same concept as the American F-82, but unlike the F-82, it doesn't really bring anything new to the table. It doesn't have an air spawn. It is not in anything particularly better than a regular BF109, and even the firepower, the selling point, the 430mm cannons, while on paper giving you the same burst mass as the ME-262, it's different. You don't have a lot of ammunition per gun, you don't have really anything that is outstanding for tank RB, and I think the biggest problem for this plane is the existence of the TAR 154A1 and also in particular the Heinkel 219A7. So let's just briefly talk about the difference between the Heinkel 219A7 and the BF109Z. I think the Heinkel 219A7 is, if I'm not wrong, cheaper, has a lower battle rating, more guns, more ammunition per gun, more versatile for various different engagement roles in tank RB and air RB and arcade, and is also part of the Gaijin revenue share program, so you actually support a little bit a player that created this model. It's nice to fly, the engines don't overheat, it turns better, and the only advantage that the BF109Z has is that it might climb faster, but it doesn't have an air spawn. You get the sense where I'm going, and that's not even really talking about the plane's performance in battle. Now, I think another point that we have to talk about when we talk about the firepower. I laughed a little bit when this plane was announced and Gaijin said that 430mm cannons are a bit overkill. This might have been true in the very old days when 30mm worked, but in the patch where I stated this on YouTube in a comment, it was like that 30mm were sparking, 50 cals were overpowered, and in this patch, Gaijin really came across it and buffed all ammunition types that rely on HE for aircraft. So throughout all the 7 nations in the game, every single nation profited. Yes, even the Americans, because they also have a lot of planes that rely on high explosive damage. So that might also change in the future, and then you're left with nothing. You have no option to mount any additional armament, to get rid of probably the wing ports, to have any sort of machine guns even. This is purely about 30mm devastating. But the muzzle velocity of those MK108s is bad, and again, the Heinkel 219A7 has just not just more guns, but is also more versatile for long range, mid range, close range, anti-tank purposes. And the only thing that the Bf109Z has to offer is a single 250 kilogram bomb and the usual ammunition selection for the MK103s. MK108s, I'm sorry. So, the ace gameplay is coming up. Let's see how the plane fares at Norway. So here we are on Norway, which is the home of the War Emergency Power Web, and I will cut a little bit the scene in the middle because there is a phase where there is absolutely nothing worth showing. This is now my ace gameplay on Norway, and Norway offers a huge variety of beneficial things for this aircraft. Now it begins with the plane having an air start, so you don't have to start from the airfield. Compared to some other heavy fighters that also field the name interceptors. It's not really bad at climbing, it's actually good, but it's not extremely excellent. One of the downsides is that you have to use manual engine controls for the engines to prevent a meltdown. So to prevent Fukushima in your engine, just open the radiators via manual engine control, and when you climb, the additional air resistance is really not so much of a bad thing. But when you then are finished with climbing or want to engage somebody, go back to automatic engine control, and then you just get the maximum acceleration, and without closing the radiators again in a dive, you just don't accelerate that much. So this is something that you have to keep in mind. The next thing is I'm climbing somewhere between our destroyer flotillas and also our bombing points to intercept potential bombers, medium bombers, heavy bombers from the enemy, going for the bombing points to pick them apart, and then just observing where the enemies are deploying their aircraft. Now in the majority of games, the allied teams are showing behavior like they're going for the destroyers. You might be able to see the traces from the destroyers, so there you can have an idea where the enemy aircraft are coming, or if there are some enemy aircraft coming, and you get the altitude advantage. You might get 1 or 2 kills, and then you might be able to re-engage the enemy. And your team is mostly not that patient, so they go in and then you can do vulturing. So that means helping your team do the teamwork by killing the enemies that are preoccupied in a fight with another aircraft. So as we can see, the first enemies that we spot are on low ground, 4 of them, 1 over the destroyers, and then a PBJ makes the smartest decision of his life, going head-on against the Heinkel 219, because this is America. Yeah, not this time though. So I see a P-51 popping up, and let's see how this engagement goes. So I want to get a good strike in first, and with the buffed performance of 30mm, it might be good, but you can see how much lead you have to give. This was not enough lead, but he just does an awful maneuver in just continuing his pathway, and it was good enough to get guns on target. And we continue to help our team. I'm a bit impatient in this battle, and I just want to get some kills, potentially for a kill compilation and something like this. This P-63 at first looked like he wanted to go into a head-on, and then he gives me one of the sweetest kills that I had in months. That was just honestly, that was awesome. As slow as the muzzle velocity is on the MK108s, when somebody stalls out like this, then yeah. So about the plane handling, while the elevator is still stiff and just works okayish at higher speeds, at lower speeds it's an absolute brick in the air, and some heavy bombers have better elevator authority. But it is good enough to get my 3rd kill on this poor F6F, And now this Spitfire is in a 4 versus 1, and he actually kills the G55, the Italian one, probably the biggest threat, and we are engaging him. So I wanted to get here in this shot, but then he, well, again fell victim to the overwhelming firepower of the Heinkel 290. So that's good. So at this point, we cleaned up a good portion of the Allied team, and I think now I cut out a lot portion of just boring reclimbing. After a while, I found myself below the enemy aircraft because some of them actually bothered climbing, but now they are heavily outnumbered and they just can't get the kills on the German aircraft. So I tried to bait here the Spitfire into following me to actually get a bit of de-stressing on my actual fighters, and if I manage to drag him down, then so be it. So now I try to turn and look at this. Oh my god. And you know, opening your flaps, they just really quickly rip off. Despite redeploying them, or you know, not using the combat flaps anymore, even then they very often rip. And now I am in danger of overspeeding. It's just barely managing to get 800, I guess. But with the stiffening response and you know the sluggish handling, because it doesn't really roll all that well, I think I just let him get away with this. So the next thing is trying to get here in the head-on versus the P61, and he just chose another target, so I couldn't get guns on target, despite having some speed under my belt. And at long range, just forget it aiming with those things, they're just really bad at it. However, the handling overall, so the elevator is stiff except at higher speeds, but the rudder, it's not as bad as I imagined. It's less nervous, it's less wobbling around, but the roll rate then is rather slow, and if you have enough time to prepare for a shot, you even can kill a Spitfire with ease, this time for my 4th kill. So rolling over, at this point I lost the enemy out of sight, and it is the last enemy survivor. It's a P51, and now he's running for the Flak Island, as I call it, because there are the 3 enemy bombing points. There is a ridiculous amount of AAA on it. However, it's one of those outstanding features of Norway that the bombing points are actually very well protected. And you can see we are not really keeping up with him. We do a little bit, but coming out of the dive with that speed, the P51 is just really good at running. I will keep up, but not before I will reach the Flak Island, so I choose to pitch up and just climb. I want the ace, I want the 5th kill, but the ridiculous amount of AAA guns on the Flak Island and also the destroyers, I don't want to throw my 4 kills away, you know, I want the ace. So let's be patient. Let's climb, let's get some energy into it, and let's give my team members time to, well, keep up. And here I write in chat, don't run, you'll just die tired. I was a bit cocky here, I guess. But now the SBA, or the AAA rather, is shooting me, and I'm just turning away. Hopefully they will pick another target. And there I have bad ping. That was bad ping. So I played the match, and suddenly my my internet connection, well, went mad, and now it's okayish again, I guess. Try to avoid here the AAA. This is kind of the part where it's looking very cinematic, but it's also very annoying at the same time. I still see the dot of this guy. Eventually the SBA, or the AAA rather, will shoot somewhere else, or shoot somebody else, and I can re-engage in a dive and hopefully pick him apart. But I must not throw it away, and he is now sentenced to fly around the island. He cannot really run anymore. That drains the P-51's energy even more. He cannot really climb. He has constantly to avoid the boom and zoom attacks from more and more aircraft. Now, 5 German aircraft have gathered around the flak aligned to see what is what. So now the flak is shooting somewhere else, so I choose to engage. Write it here in chat or giving the message for my team so that they know what's going on. And I'm just diving, and now the AAA is shooting at me again. So you can see with the rudder, the flight model is still a bit restricted, but it could be worse. It's still wobbling a little bit around, but it's far from being as nervous as the new old Focke-Wulf flight model or Bf109. And then we get a nice strafe into it. And a nice shot rather, and he lands on the rocks. P-51's on the rocks. And yeah, that's my ace. But again, it was the very old same story. It was RRB, I was climbing, I was picking off the enemies one by one. They showed not the very best behavior. They were flying in a straight line. They were stalling out in front of my guns. They were flying into my firing solution. There was a lot of German teamwork. It was always in our favor. And so I was the lucky one to get the kills. But to do it on your own, to really take out the plane and being the one that feels comfortable in directly engaging the enemy on your terms is again not very possible, but there are the results. Look at this. 10,000 vehicle research points and 131,000 silver lines for 5 kills and 2 critical hits. But then again, I think I would get roughly the same in a cheaper aircraft that's not in a bundle, that performs overall better and is more versatile throughout the game modes, like the Heinkel 219A7, which I recommend more. But this is what the plane can do. Currently 30mm Mk108s are working, but I give you no promise that they will in the future. That's it for me today. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a like if it did, subscribe if you want to see more. Let me know what you think about this plane in the comment section, and we'll see each other in the skies and on the battlefields of War Thunder.